90.3 WHPC now presents Law You Should Know. The law affects every aspect of our lives, our home, our jobs, and our recreational activities. Now, learn about the law and how to protect yourself against the loss of your liberty or property, and learn how to stand up for your rights and seek compensation when you have been wronged. Your host for Law You Should Know is attorney Kenneth J. Landau, a past dean of the Nassau Academy of Law, and frequently lectures to lawyers on ethics and avoiding problems with clients, and to the public on how to choose and use lawyers. This is Law You Should Know on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, this is Ken Landau, and welcome to Law You Should Know. Today we're going to continue our discussion with Judge Elizabeth D. Pesella about dealing with traffic tickets, and specifically how to resolve traffic tickets, whether it's by mail or going to court. She is the Associate Village Justice in Westbury and a hearing officer at the Nassau County Traffic and Parking Violations Agency. She was participating in a prior program talking about some of the more common violations, and now we'll talk about what happens if you get a ticket or you know someone who's gotten a ticket, how to work out the best possible scenario with them. Judge Pesella, welcome back to Law You Should Know.
Thank you.
It's unfortunate if someone gets a ticket. It's trying to promote health and safety and prevent accidents, but they have to timely deal with the consequences of those tickets. So the ticket is going to have deadlines on it. It's going to have information about the offenses, perhaps a link to a videotape of if they went through a red light camera or a stop sign camera or something. And what's the first thing the person who got a ticket should think about in trying to resolve it?
Well, depending on who gave you the ticket, if you're in a village with, and there are 64 villages in Nassau County, many of them have their own police department. So sometimes they will give you the ticket with a schedule, a fine schedule. So if you want to plead guilty, it's usually a reduced fine. You can mail it in and take care of it that way. But the ticket, either way, whether you get it from a Nassau County police officer or a village police officer, it will have a place that you go to answer the ticket and a date and a time, and that's sort of the end date where you can take care of things.
And if you get a ticket somewhere else in the state, you can always call the court for the procedures.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they're willing to, work out some deal with you on the phone, subject to the approval of the judge.
Correct.
Maybe reducing the points, maybe reducing the fine, just a way of just resolving it.
Correct. Your first phone call should be to the court clerk. And again, this information is readily available on the internet. You just look at the village or whoever gave you the ticket.
And a person has a right to counsel. You may even find some attorneys who are regularly in that court, and there's other attorneys who advertise they're expert at traffic cases. Right. If you have enough in fines or use of license, it may be you can have a consultation with the attorney to see if they can be of help to you.
You're entitled to you're entitled to have an attorney there, but you're not entitled to have it paid for. If for traffic tickets, you have to pay for the attorney yourself.
Some people may have legal plans that provide for an attorney or a fixed amount for an attorney, so it's good to check those things.
Correct.
Otherwise, it might be worth a consultation with an attorney if they can help you avoid fines or jeopardy of your driving license or increased insurance that may come because of pleading guilty to certain violations of points. It may be worth it to hire an attorney if they can help you. Correct.
And it may put you in a different assigned risk pool and so forth.
Yes, absolutely. And if you go into court, is demeanor and dress important?
Yes. I mean, we're all human, and I think if you take a few moments to respect the court or whoever you're in front of to look your best and at least try to be, have clean clothes or at least have a direct gaze, look at whoever you're speaking to, speak in a calm way, although you might be very angry and feel very self-righteous that this ticket was wrongfully given to you. You want to be able to effectively communicate that feeling. So speaking in, slowly and calmly. And if you need to bring people with you to help you, get through it, by all means. Most of the courthouses are required to be handicapped accessible. They have translators. In traffic court in Garden City, we use Language Line, and we always have Spanish and certain other common languages always on staff. In my village in Westbury, we have a Creole as well as 2 Spanish interpreters for every court session.
And sometimes the prosecuting attorney will tell you what they can do for you, what the fine might be. And you probably have a chance to think about it, if you, in some courts,
Correct.
think about it and return on a future date. Or
the usual procedure is that you first discuss the ticket with the prosecutor. The prosecutor usually has your driving record. They hear your explanation, your excuse, if that's what you want to call it, and then they decide whether they want to reduce the charges to something with less points, less fine, or both. Now, most people want to walk out without points on their license because points affect your insurance and they stay on your driving record for 18 months, but the insurance companies can look at them for years. There's no rules about when they have to ignore them. So many people will say, look, I'll pay a higher fine, but no points. But again, it depends on the offense and who the prosecutor is.
And very important, they can take that defensive driving class after a conviction's entered and after points are entered
after fine is paid.
After the fine is paid
Yes.
to reduce the points.
Absolutely, yeah. You've got to pay that fine. Now, if you, something your listeners should know, if the return date for the ticket has gone by and for whatever reason you just slipped your mind, you ignored it, whatever, and your license is suspended, that suspension is done by the Department of Motor Vehicles, not by the county, not by the village. There's a $70 fee to remove that suspension, and that has to be paid. So that your license, that's something that is added to the fine.
And to resolve that as quickly as possible, you just show up at the court?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because
traffic,
you don't want to be driving with a suspended license because that will lead
correct.
to more problems.
And you know what? Many people don't know, and I believe them. They don't know the license was suspended. Why? It was suspended because they forgot to pay a ticket from who knows when in the past, and they didn't realize it. So some people are just brazen and know that the license is suspended, but many don't. So you come in and resolve it and leave safely.
As you said, once you take that, you pay the fine, you can have some points, removed through the defensive driving class. Even if you don't have those tickets, you can take that course and get a discount on certain aspects of insurance.
Correct. Something you should also know that most of the courthouses, because of safety issues and security, have metal detectors. And in the Nassau County Traffic Court, there's a Nassau County police officer presence. The other thing your listeners
So don't bring anything that's going to trigger those metal detectors.
Right, even the butter knives, which they do come in. You should also know that in the Nassau County courts, there is a special veterans court, so that if the person that got the ticket has any veteran service, that they should let the clerk know, call up, and also it's on the website, and there's a special time they can come. And sometimes their reasons for doing things are a little bit different and need a different kind of understanding and treatment.
And what will happen in court? As you said, there's a conference. The prosecuting attorney will tell you what they can do and what they can't do. If you decide not to accept that offer, what happens then?
Okay, again, it's the same whether it's the village or the county. The prosecutor recommends a disposition, and if you decide that is something that you're not interested in, you can request a trial, and you would go to trial on the original charge the original ticket. And that trial usually will take place at another time because the police officer that gave you the ticket has to be there so that the judge hears both sides of the story.
And if you're representing yourself, you can cross-examine that police officer as witness, or if you have an attorney, they can do that. And I guess you can testify under oath about your defenses, if any, your version of what happened.
Usually the procedure of a trial is that the prosecutor, the people, the village, the county, will have the police officer be their first witness. They'll go through what happened when they gave you the ticket. You can cross-examine them, and then you can be sworn and tell the court what happened. If you have any witnesses, they can be sworn. You have to be sworn to make your testimony, and then you can be cross-examined. And then the judge usually makes a decision right then.
And if there are any what you believe are special or mitigating circumstances, you can share them with the court.
Absolutely. You can bring in pictures, graphs, whatever you think, and again, have an attorney if you feel that that's necessary to tell the court in your own words what happened.
Okay.
And language shouldn't be a problem. We have many different languages. And again, if we know ahead of time, we can make arrangements. And even we have trials in many languages.
Now, percentage-wise, very few of the traffic cases actually go to trial?
Correct, because the prosecutors are usually, most people have clean driving records. So the final disposition is usually in their favor, and people just decide to proceed with that reduced charge. Because when you go to trial, it's the original charge, which may have points, so it's like all or nothing.
And even if someone doesn't have a clean driving record, they may negotiate for lower points or lower fine than all the potential charges under a ticket.
Correct. And some people have miserable records, but they're on a campaign to sort of clean things up, and the court is usually sympathetic to them. And we also, in New York now, since 2019, if you can't make your payments, you can work out a payment plan.
Just want to remind our listeners, we're talking with Judge Elizabeth Pesala, and she's a graduate of Nassau Community College. She's also the Associate Village Justice of Westbury and a hearing officer for the Nassau County Traffic and Parking Relations Agency. We've been hearing about many of their procedures. You're listening to Law You Should Know on WHPC 90.3, the voice of Nassau Community College. If you missed any portion of this program or the prior program describing different traffic tickets, please go to the website at ncc.radio.org.
Something
yes, go ahead.
I will also mention most of the courts will take cash, check, credit cards. I think in traffic court they don't take Apple Pay, and if you do pay by a credit card now, because the state is not subsidizing anything, you will have to pay a little service charge if you're going to use a credit card. The burden of proof, which your listeners may not be attorneys, but it's important to know, is beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, these are not misdemeanors. They're not crimes, so they're not on anybody. There's no criminal record. So it's traffic, and it's just your driving record is what shows up.
And a DWI would be handled through the criminal courts.
Absolutely.
That has potential criminal consequences.
Correct. And the same thing with narcotics and drugs.
And
now, if you don't appear, suppose you came in and you decided to have a trial, and they set a trial date, and the police officer is there in court ready to go, and you're not there, the court may just proceed and hear the police officer's testimony and go ahead without you. So it's very important, if you request a trial and you have that police officer off the streets not doing their job, to let you have your moment in court, that you do attend to it.
And you or your attorney have the chance to cross-examine that police officer.
Absolutely, yes. And if once the decision is made, you have the right to appeal, and the right to appeal has to be done within 30 days of the decision. And the appeals are very user-friendly for traffic tickets. It's all done on paper. The decisions are made by the appellate term court, which sits in Brooklyn. But again, it's very user-friendly. You don't have to go to Brooklyn. If you win the appeal, you get a refund of your fine. You have to pay your fines first, whether it's murder or a traffic ticket. You always have to pay your fines before you can appeal. So.
And you might have to pay for some kind of transcript before you can appeal?
You have to pay for you contact, and again, the clerk will give you the court reporter's name. That's a good point to bring up. In the village as well as traffic court, everything that's said is taken down either by a voice recorder on the laptop or by a court reporter. And that's to protect everybody.
And you'd have to weigh the cost versus the benefits of taking an appeal. If you had a lot at stake,
correct,
in fines or ability to continue to drive, that might weigh in favor of trying to appeal something. But if you didn't, you don't have points in your license, it might be better off to bite the bullet.
Well, that's a decision that the person would have to make.
In terms of the license suspension or revocation, is it sometimes done conditionally so a person can drive on a limited basis?
That doesn't happen in traffic court. That happens usually as part of a disposition with a DWI, drunk driving, or driving under the influence of drugs.
But is there an automatic suspension if you didn't have insurance?
Yes.
So I'm just saying under that, if you...
I'm not aware of one, unless... occasionally, I think it's... you may have an attorney come in, and because usually if somebody is in that bind where there was no insurance. There's some knot or something happened, some sequence of events, and you try to untie it, and you work together between the judge and the prosecutor and the defendant, and you try to work something out. But again, driving without insurance in New York is a very, very serious offense.
And it's more serious if you're in an accident. But if you get if you get a ticket for, if you get stopped for something else and you don't have an insurance card and the insurance unfortunately was canceled, that's why, as you mentioned in our prior show, if you get those notices, you've got to do something before the deadline to make the payment or get some other insurance.
Correct. And oftentimes people will come in, they were driving perfectly, but somebody hit them. So the police officer is going to ask everybody involved for all that information. So if you took that one chance to run out in the day where you were changing companies or something and somebody hits you, you're going to get the ticket for having no insurance. It has nothing to do with fault.
And if you thought the check was in the mail or you were going to wait until payday on Friday, unless you have the valid insurance in place, it hasn't been canceled, it hasn't expired, you're going to have problems. And
many times, many people get tickets where they're buying a used car from a dealer or for somebody else, and they're driving that car to their house, and that's when they get the ticket. So
for the insurance
or registration and for the license plate.
I just want to remind our listeners that we're talking with the Judge Elizabeth Pisala. She happens to be a graduate of Nassau Community College, and now she's the Associate Village Justice in Westbury and a hearing officer to Nassau County Traffic and Parking Violations Agency. And we're talking about resolving traffic tickets. If you missed any portion of this program, please feel free to listen to the podcast. And if you missed our prior show about different traffic tickets, what the criteria are, and some of the penalties, please listen to that program as well. What other tips do you have on do's and don'ts if someone is going to traffic court, whether it's the village or the centralized court for Nassau County tickets?
I think it's always important to present your case calmly and with maybe write out a timeline before you go in, because you think you're going to be fine, but when you're in that situation, sometimes you get a little rattled. So if you write down the points that you want to make ahead of time, understand you can look online and see your record, your driving record, the Department of Motor Vehicles website. So go in knowing what your driving record is, know how many points or what the situation is. Many people go back to the site of where they got the ticket and they take pictures. Oh, the light is, the yellow light is too fast or what have you, or trees were covering the stop sign. That's very common where you don't see a stop sign. And that's all. That's all little homework you can do before you go to court and have it ready. And
as you mentioned, with the those red light cameras or no right turn on red signs, they're very unforgiving, and usually there's a videotape to back it up. With the stop signs, if there's no camera, it may be your word against the officer may have witnessed it, and. But the best practice is to stop for a certain period of time so there's no question about it, right, and then proceed if it's safe to do so. Right. As I mentioned in the previous episode, the Vehicle and Traffic Law in New York, the definition of a stop, whether at a red light or a stop sign, is the complete cessation of motion. So what that means is you have to sort of figure out your own style of a long enough stop. Are there any other, if you had a passenger in your car, could they testify about what happened or did not happen? Absolutely. If you have a trial, they are sworn, so they have to tell the truth. And by all means, sometimes it's very helpful to have a passenger discuss what happened, particularly if there's a road rage situation or bad weather or so forth. Or some kind of medical emergency. A medical emergency, correct. And it's important to just... Oh, can I make another point? Absolutely. Yes. Something that over time has changed the thinking of the hearing officers and the police officers. Many people get going through a red light after they're following an ambulance. We do not really let that go, because the thinking is that the person that is ill or needs help is being taken care of in the ambulance. And by your going through a red light or speeding
in an effort to keep up with the ambulance, you're actually putting yourself in jeopardy as well as other drivers. So that's important for people to know, that that's not an excuse that you're following the ambulance.
And is that true for a funeral procession as well?
It used to be that the funeral processions were always given the green light to do that. Not so much anymore. The funeral parlors are supposed to instruct the drivers that they have to obey all the local traffic laws. Sometimes you don't see it that way, but technically they're supposed to.
And what is the rule if you see a police car has pulled over someone on a highway or a regular street?
Yes.
Are you supposed to move over, or if you can?
Good point. It's about been now 8 or 9 years. It's Section 1144. It's called the Move Over Law. If you see any emergency vehicle with flashing lights, and now it even includes a tow truck and construction vehicles, you must move over when practical, over one lane to the left.
And when might not be practical if there's a lot of traffic
if it's
there?
One lane, but then you should absolutely slow down at the very least.
And that's always best practice, to slow down and move over if you can. Keep everyone safe.
Keep everyone safe. And again, tap on your brakes so the person behind you knows that's what you intend to do.
And when you stop at a light, when you stop behind people, leave a lot of distance ahead of you in case, unfortunately, you're hit in the rear. You're not going to go into someone else. Correct.
The ticket is called following too closely. We know it as tailgating, but that's never a safe way to drive. But again, the defensive driving classes, they're very reasonable. They're given in many languages. You can do it online. And it really does give people tips and reminds them, what is safe driving. And conditions in the roads change. It's not the same as it was 20 years ago or 30 years.
And also there's more distractions out there. You mentioned in a prior program about holding devices, but people are legally perhaps talking on a cell phone, but they're very distracted. Yeah. They have gadgets and complicated radios, and they're generally more distracted than they used to be, and they're pedestrians are out there, bicyclists, scooters.
Now there are scooters, yes. You should also know, although people have the earpiece in, the law is on the books since the 70s. You cannot have both ears covered with headphones, only one. Okay, so some people, if they have their headphones, they're going to get a ticket. So even though they're saying they're hands-free, you can't have both ears covered.
And even with some people using, let's say, an earbud, you can only have one bud in your ear. That's
Correct.
So you can hear outside noise.
Correct, right, exactly.
Even if you can walk with 2 earbuds.
Correct. And again, it bears repeating about the tinted windows. If you get a ticket, the resolution for the tinted window ticket, which is very commonly given, is get the tints removed. And if you do it yourself, go to a police department. They come out with a light meter and give you a paper that it's in compliance.
And it's something about, let's say, a headlight or a light bulb. Let's say your light or headlight is broken. You get a ticket. You do have to pay the fine, but you can show it's been repaired.
Correct. And maybe the fine will be determined on how soon you got it repaired. Like some people, their registration or their inspection is expired, but it expired 4 months ago.
Right.
Well, they're going to get a different fine than somebody.
Well, with the headlight, you can always, in a non-argumentative manner, just tell the police officer you didn't know or it just happened, and you're going to take care of it on your way home or the next morning.
You're still going to get the ticket, probably. I don't know. I mean, every police officer is different. Every situation is different. But enough people I see with these tickets, that I think, again, public safety is first and foremost.
And a lot of these laws are designed not to be punitive, but to promote public safety, to promote your safety and the safety of others. Now, we have all these scooters and motorized vehicles and things in between. Does the vehicle and traffic law apply to a motorized bicycle or a scooter or something in between?
It's my understanding that it's still very unsettled. Technically, if it's got a motor and you're on the road, you have to have a registration, insurance, and inspection, particularly the insurance and the registration. The electric bicycles, there's no really rule yet. The motorized scooters are a real menace, and they're using the roads. And again, they're a hazard, and they're going to be treated as a car. You're on the road, then you got to have all that documentation and a helmet, of course. And
I just want to remind our listeners that we're talking with Judge Elizabeth Pasella. She's a graduate of Nassau Community College, and she's the Associate Village Justice in Westbury and a hearing officer at the Nassau County Traffic and Parking Violations Agency. We've been talking about resolving traffic tickets. Keep in mind whatever you've heard is presented as information only. You have to get information from the court officials and perhaps retain your own attorney or do research about the laws and prepare your best defense and try to resolve the case as best you can. We're talking about how to avoid problems and resolving them if you should be unfortunate enough to get a ticket. Judge Pasella, any final thoughts on do's and don'ts to try to stay safe and just resolving tickets as best you can, accepting the consequences and moving on?
I guess it's just, of course, just to drive safely and prudently. And if you do get stopped, just try to get through it in a very calm manner. If you do have to come to court, always call the court first or go on the website. You'll save yourself a lot of time and agony of wasted time and wasted trips. To what's the best time to appear, and what will roughly be the procedure. The traffic court in Garden City now also has night hours, a couple of days a month, and the doors are open. They're not open 9 to 5, so you want to call up ahead of time and find out when they're open.
And if it's a ticket from a local village, you can contact the village court.
Yes.
They'll give you helpful information about procedures, ways to resolve it.
Correct.
You may or may not want to use an attorney, depending on what's at stake.
Correct.
But you could always bring a friend or relative for support.
And again, you can bring somebody to translate. If you want, if that's often helpful.
And the best advice is also be respectful of the court personnel, of the judge, and of course even of the police officer.
Yeah, most courthouses don't allow pets unless it's a security pet, and but they're all wheelchair accessible and so forth.
And you should dress up appropriately for an important proceeding.
It helps, I think.
And some courts may not let you in if you're inappropriately dressed.
Some courts do have a
dress code.
Yes.
And you don't want to make a trip to court and take a day off from work. And
right.
And again, if you cannot make it on the assigned day, you want to try to contact the court in advance.
Absolutely. Again, most courts they're not out to make your life harder. They just want to resolve the matter too. So they'll be very understanding, but not if you're demanding and you wait till the last minute.
Right. So best to go in or call them in advance and try to adjourn it.
Correct.
I'd like to thank Judge Pasella for being our guest on Law You Should Know. If you missed any part of the program, please go to the website and tell other people about the program and the prior program about describing in detail some of the different traffic tickets at nccradio.org. And please join us next week at this same time for another program on Law You Should Know here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York.